So tonight I wanted to talk about exiting the business. I run into this a lot. I've worked with about over 1,000 companies over the years, and most people don't understand what their options are. They don't know where they can go. They don't know what to think about. They don't know when they should start. So I'm going to touch on a little bit of everything, and hopefully that'll help everyone glean some new ideas, some new knowledge, and maybe some places to start. My first question to everyone is, are there more than two options available? And usually people think there's only selling or shutting down. And I've seen both. I've seen people that have sold because they think that's the only option. And I've seen people sadly take a very successful business and just shut it down. And it saddens me because after all those years of setting up your business and making it successful, I find it very sad that you just turned around and you literally just shut the doors. Unfortunately, a lot of that advice comes from accountants, and this isn't a bash on accountants by any means, but they don't often sit down with the business owner and tell the business owner what their options are and what they could do and what they might be able to think about for the future. So a succession plan for a business is like a will for an estate. And if anyone has set up a will for themselves and all the things they had to think about, it's the same sort of thing for a business, because really a succession plan is like your will for your business. It's a detailed documentation of what the business is to do should something happen to you or should you want to exit your business. And it can be a daunting task. I've had lots of business owners say to me, oh my goodness, how do I make these choices and how do I set this up? And it seems like so much work. But the situation for you can be very different from the situation for the person down the street. There is no right or wrong answer. And it really depends on what you want to happen with your business and what your future plans are for yourself, because you can meld the two of them together. There's not just one answer for everyone. So if you don't think it's a big deal, or you make a comment about what could go wrong, or everyone will just do what is right, I'm here to tell you that there's lots of things that can go wrong, and it's not meant to scare you. It is a big deal because if you have a set of employees working for your business, your decision on what you do with the business impacts their families and their lives as well. But what you decide to do with your business as well, when you decide to exit, also impacts your family, your children, your grandchildren, all the way down the line. So I'm going to tell a few stories. I like telling stories because for me, that's one of the best ways to help people understand what has to happen. So before I do that, though, I want you to pause for a minute and think. Think about what might happen if you were gone today and your business was left to go forward. What would happen to the company? What would happen to your family and to your employees and your partners? I'm going to pause there for a second. I just want you to think about that for a minute. So I'm going to tell a few stories, and these are real stories. I'm not going to divulge who the companies are, but I'm going to tell some real stories. The first one is a very large company. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. The father passed away suddenly from a massive heart attack. The wife did not work in the company. They had 4 children. 2 worked in the company, 2 didn't. There was no succession plan. So I got a desperate call from one of the directors who was trying to keep the company operating while the family sorted out the mess. Because what happened in this case is the company, because there was no succession plan and no structure to it, was tangled into the settlement of the estate and the will of the father. So the directors called me in to see if they could get some help on moving the company forward. The company was in chaos for 6 months. We finally got an agreement from the 4 kids to provide the directors with temporary control of the company so they could run the company. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. And the kids were fighting over money and who was going to run the company and who was going to be the president, and it was just a mess. But the good news in the end is we did navigate through it. And after 6 months, they did have a new president, a new structure. The family members that wanted to work in the business worked in the business, and they came up with a formula to pay off the rest of the family and satisfy the family. So it did turn out okay. It was just a very traumatic 6 months. The second story was a partnership. One of the partners passed away, and the widow wanted to run the company with the other partner or be bought out by the partner. Again, there was no succession plan. The result was chaos in the company for about 12 months while the widow interfered with the operation. She kept going to meetings with clients instead of the partner that actually knew the business. She interfered with the banking. It was just a nightmare. There was a lawsuit that started between the partner and the widow. And in the end, they did settle on a payout, and we did get the company back on track and get staff trained appropriately. But again, a very traumatic and stressful event. The third story is a business that was prepared. And I always like to end with this because it's a good news story. It was owned by 2 partners. I worked with them for a long time. One of the partners passed away suddenly. We actually had built a succession plan 2 years before the partner passed away. So in the meantime, we had cross-trained the staff, put insurance and shareholder agreements in place. And when this happened, the family of the partner that passed away was paid out from the plan that was done and the formula that was used in the succession plan shareholder agreement and the insurance. And the other staff in the company were shuffled around to support the partner that remained. So if we talk tonight about succession planning and actually put some ideas of plans in place, it can be a lot easier transition if something happens in a company or one of the partners wants to leave. It's not always tragic. Sometimes people just want to retire and not work anymore. So here's some things to consider as we start going through the rest of the discussion. Who owns the company? Is it a single owner, a family, or one or more partners? Do you want to exit the company completely or just have someone else run it? There's lots of options and lots of ways to set it up to suit your needs or your desire for your retirement or for your next journey or adventure. Do you want residual passive income? What is the structure of your company? And is there a group of people in the company that might be prepared to be trained to run the company should you want to continue owning the company and have someone else run it for you? So there's lots and lots of things to consider. The next thing to think about is company ownership. So if the company is owned by a single owner or a family or one or more partners, then you have to consider all the options and all the people that are partners in the company. If you have multiple partners, do you have a shareholder or a partner agreement? It's amazing how many people are in business with someone else and they have no agreement. None. Not even a single piece of paper that says, this is how we're going to agree to run the company. And this is usually where the conflict begins. If you have partners, do your partners have family members that have to be considered should something happen in the company? Or if you want to retire, what does that formula look like? And do you need to have special consideration for future family members should something happen to one of the partners or to you if you're the single sole owner of the company? I've seen situations where business owners wanted to take into account future grandchildren in the succession plan for their business, or should something happen to them, they wanted to be able to put stuff away. And they structured their succession plans accordingly. So creation of a succession plan. How do we do that? The first thing I want people to consider is, what does exiting mean to you? Because exiting means different things to different people. So what does it mean to you? When you start talking about succession planning, one of the big steps is to have a discussion with your family, your partners in the business, and the management team of the business, and find out what people think of succession planning within the company and in your families. That'll help you develop a succession plan that is going to work for everyone. If you get everyone on board ahead of time, there's a lot less tension and stress later on when you actually have to implement the succession plan. Creating a succession plan. There are templates out there to do succession plans. I'm going to talk later about organizations that can help you create a succession plan. There's groups that do class training to help you develop your succession plans. There's all sorts of things, but there's some basic things that are involved in every succession plan, and I'm going to list those out. So a succession plan includes things like what to do if there's an unexpected exit in the company, whether it's a death, an illness, it could be they have a change in life, they have to go and they have to move because their family's moving. It could be all sorts of things. You have to think about what's going to happen to the company and who's going to run the company. And just like people, when they develop wills, people don't really want to think about this, but it's important to think about it ahead of time and list out what's going to happen and who's going to do what. If you have partners with family, what will be the role of the family versus your partner's family? I've seen, as we saw in the one example, lots of situations where family starts to get involved. And if they're not integral to the business currently and they get involved with running the business, it can just create a complete disaster in the business. So what do you want to have happen should you need to exit or want to exit or unexpectedly pass away? What do you want to happen with the company, with families that are involved in the company? And you can create a succession plan that lays all of those details out. If one partner wants to leave the company, how are they and their family compensated? You can add formulas into the plan that mean less stress for those around them. And the more you lay out, the more details, especially if it's a stressful situation, the less people have to think, and the more accountants and lawyers that get involved during a succession plan can take charge and just make things happen for you. And if you have partners in the company and everyone's agreed to the formulas ahead of time, it makes things a lot easier and a lot smoother transition. The next thing to think about in a succession plan is the management of the company. So depending on the size of the company and the complexity of the company, you have to actually lay out the management of the company, right from the president down. So who is going to do what in the future should the management team or the partners or the owners of the company change? The owners could be directly involved in the company, or they could be just shareholders in the company. But what are you going to do to manage the company going forward should something happen to change the path of the company? It could be laying out migration of people up into the management team. The one that I did the cross training in, and we were very successful with the transition. They actually cross trained people and they shadowed people on a regular basis up into the role that they would have been moved into should something have happened. So when the change actually happened, they automatically were ready and knew what they were supposed to do in their new role. The next thing in the succession plan is a schedule and a plan around training of staff. Who's going to take on what key roles and what roles need to be hired or filled in if the person does not exist in the company today. There are people that will take on roles in a company as an interim basis to help companies through succession plans as well. So if an executive left and they needed a temporary or interim HR person, there are people out there that will actually fill that role for a company if needed. But you want to lay that all out in the succession plan. The other thing to think about is if you or your partner are gone and the person that is left is to look after the partners of the other family, what does that look like? Does that family work in the business? Does the family want to exit the business if something happens? What is that plan? And detail that out. Now, sometimes there's an agreement where multiple people in a family actually work in the business, and they make an agreement that the next person in the family will move up into a management role and take over what the other person was doing. But all those details detailed out make things a lot simpler. And my favorite, because I have a project management background, is a timeline and execution plan. So you want to have a timeline or a detailed execution plan on if it has to be implemented, what that looks like and what has to be done first to prioritize things that have to get done. So let's talk a little bit about variations on succession plans. I want you to think for a minute before I talk about what some of the options are about what you would like to happen. If you were to have to build a succession plan for a business, what would you like it to look like? What would you like to have happen if it was executed? Because a lot of people, when they think about it, they think it's just going to be all very simple. You know, everything's going to flow. There's not going to be any arguments. There's not going to be anyone that doesn't like each other, or there's no one that's going to think that the company owes them this or that or whatever. I can tell you, it's just like in a will and an estate. When money starts showing up on the table in a succession plan situation, all sorts of personality changes happen in the people that are involved. So you want to make sure you've thought about it very clearly and made a plan. So here's some of the ones that I know of, other than just selling and exiting, that I've actually implemented with clients, and there's lots of variations of these. So in businesses, you can stop running the business and have others run it for you, but still own the business and get a passive income from it. In that first scenario, you have no involvement in the business, but you're still getting payment from the company. So it could be a situation where they're giving you a slow payout, which is good for you if you're retiring because you don't get all your money all at once and have the tax man take all your money, which I'm sure no one wants. The second one is you could leave the running of the business to your team and your partners and assume a board of director role, which is a lot less strenuous role. You're still active in the company and you continue to get a little bit of an income. You can sell the company to employees in the company who have expressed an interest to take the company forward and run the company, or to other partners who want to continue to run it. In this case, you would actually fully exit. You might take on an advisory role for a period of time, but they take the company and they run forward and keep the kind of company running, hopefully keep it successful and keep it profitable, and you carry on to whatever you want to do in life after that. And of course, the other last option is you could sell the company to others that are not in the company currently, and walk away completely. And that's a traditional selling option that most people have. I've seen lots of the first three options, and they've been very successful transitions from one person to the next. So a training plan for succession plan. You want to think about a list of the key roles that need to be filled if you leave a company or if someone suddenly exits the company unexpectedly. And you want to list out all the roles, who's currently in those roles, and who you think is the best fit for those roles if someone else has to be put in there. Also included is if you don't have a person to fill that role, what you're going to do to fill that role should something happen to someone. And the picking of those people is a combination of skill sets. It could be their length of time in the company. It could be who they report to right now. Are they a logical person to move up in the hierarchy of the company? But you want to think about who best can fill those roles, either temporarily on an interim basis or permanently. You want to think about, do you have people in the company interested in filling all the roles? And if they do, we're going to talk about what kind of training they need to fill those roles. Do you have people in the company who want to take over running the company or even purchasing it from you? If they do, they need to be trained sooner than later for the operation and the management and the running of the company, not once crisis hits. When crisis hits is not the time to try to train someone into a role. So during the training plan of the inside the succession plan, we want to create a training plan for each role. We want to list out what's formal and informal parts of the job need to be trained for that role. And if they need outside education, do they need specialized training? What that is, list it out in detail, and then we can create a training schedule for those jobs. I'm a big advocate of cross-training, because if you cross-train people and they are able to practice in the role with the person that's in the role now, that transition will be smoother later. They can also step in temporary basis should there be someone that has to go on a medical leave or a sick leave, maybe they go on vacation. That cross-trained person can fill that role even if the succession plan isn't implemented. So there's alternative benefits to doing that training. But if you want them to be successful when a succession plan is implemented, you want to make sure they have the experience in that role ahead of time. And the final piece of training is actually training on the execution of the succession plan. And it sounds funny. People go, what do you, I don't understand. But when people, when a succession plan is actually triggered, you want to have people know exactly what they're supposed to do. Who's supposed to do what, who's looking after what, who's going to do what roles, and they automatically start to move into those tasks if they are actually trained on activating the succession plan. So it's sort of like an emergency plan on steroids, because it's a lot more detailed than it would be if you were just had a temporary emergency plan. So if you do that ahead of time, then people almost automatically will step into the role, even if they're not asked to do so. So resources to help you. There are lots of resources available. Obviously, there are lots of consultants out there in the world, but one of the resources that can help you with an actual training program and a step-by-step hand program on helping you develop a succession plan is the Alberta Business Family Institute at the University of Alberta. And you can actually go through a program with your staff, with them, and create and develop a succession plan to be implemented. It's a very good program. And until I had actually talked to them, and Ursula connected us. I appreciate that. I didn't even know they existed. So there you go. There's always a new resource that you can find out there. Obviously, Community Futures and the great work they do with their team and their advisors, they can help people one-on-one with their businesses, participating in workshops and seminars like we're doing tonight. That's important. There's a group out there called Family Enterprise Exchange that is a national program. They are purely set up to deal with family businesses and helping them through all the traumatic situations that happen out there. Your accountant is very key to this process. Some accountants have more experience with succession planning than others. So you might want to take some time to have some conversations with your accountant, ask some of the questions that we've been talking about here. If they tell you, well, it's not a big deal, then you might want to consider talking to a few other accountants, because the accounting part of succession planning is very critical. There's a lot of tax implications that happen around the succession planning, and you need to make sure that the company has a solid base to be able to handle the succession plan. It can be simple things like having the accountant help you figure out how to add signatories to the right parts of the business so that the business continues to operate. If the business owner is the only signatory for the company and there's no one defined in the succession plan as a signatory, the company's in big trouble. Make sure you have a business lawyer, and not all business lawyers are savvy with succession planning. So find a business lawyer who understands succession planning, understands how to create shareholder agreements, someone that can actually figure out how to build a basis for what you want in the succession plan. It doesn't have to be a big law firm. I know a lot of people go and they say, well, I need the big law firm because then they can figure out all these things. You don't need that. You just need a very experienced business lawyer. Business advisors and consultants, there's lots of them out there. There's people that can do business valuations. There are people that can help you with the sale of the business. There are business brokers. There are business consultants that can do detailed work to help you develop the succession plan. There are business advisors that can help you with training, with skill set development, specializing in HR development of your roles and responsibilities and the training plan, or HR people that can help you with having a backup plan for interim management or team members, should you need them. Your bank, very critical one. Your bank has to be on side for succession planning. So they need to understand what the plan is if something happens to someone in the company, from signatories to people of authority that can step in if they need to, like the lawyer or the accountant, to what happens to funds in different accounts, because a lot of companies have different accounts. Just locking down accounts if something happens so that people can't just randomly take money out. All sorts of things the banks need to be involved in to help keep things running and smooth. Your financial advisor, just like you have a financial advisor for your personal, you should have a financial advisor that can give you some advice on life insurance for inside the company. So a lot of people have personal life insurance. You also should have life insurance on the business owners or the key players in the company to help with transition, to help with buyouts for partners that want to leave or family members that want to be paid out. You want to have insurance, your insurance company on board for not just life insurance, but for business insurance. And they can cover all sorts of different types of insurance inside those business insurance modules. So you want to get them all involved, everyone on board, everyone understanding what you're trying to do. So you put together the best package for the company. And then, of course, the last one is to make sure you have trainers on board to help develop the management team in the company. And it could be that you have to train a staff member to learn how to manage a team. It could be that they have to get experience in, I don't know, budgeting or financial projections. If they're going to be in a senior management in the company, they may need to learn how to communicate better with staff members. It could be time management. It could be all sorts of things that staff need to be trained on. So the skill development training could take a very long time to do. So you want to start early and make sure you have a succession plan ready long before something might happen. So here's some tips. I'm going to list out a whole bunch of tips. The first one is start now. I can't tell you how many companies I work with where they turn around and they say, I wish, and they go into this, I wish I had set everything up ahead of time. I wish I'd known that something might happen. You never know when something's going to happen in the future. So you want to plan now so you're prepared for the future. A lot less stress and a lot more comfort knowing you're ready for whatever happens. Because as soon as you say it's never going to happen to me, it's going to happen to you. I've heard so many people say, it's never going to happen. Yeah, it is. You want to have a detailed discussion and a detailed communication with your team, any of your business partners, and your family. So everyone understands the plan when it's done. So you want to work with them during the development of the plan, but you want to actually communicate in the end the final plan. So everyone who's going to be impacted by the succession plan is actually aware of what's going to happen. Start now training people into the key roles in the company so they know what they need to do if they need to engage, and what's expected of them if it's needed. It's never, I keep saying it, it's never, 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 never too early to start. I know people that are in their 20s and 30s who've lost business partners when they're in their 20s and 30s. They could have done and should have done a succession plan when they started the company. But most people don't think about that because why would they think about it? They're only 20 or 30. What could possibly go wrong? So it's never too early to start. And you can always amend the succession plan as the business evolves, as people's lifestyles or situations change. Just like you can with a personal will, you can change a succession plan as the business evolves. But if you have at least a base of it, you have something, a template to work with going forward. Give yourself the peace of mind by creating a plan so you know your future is secure, not just for you, but for your family, for your kids, for your partners. And for me, the other part that's often forgotten is all your employees. When you run a business and you have employees, all those employees and their families are relying on you. So when you don't plan, you're not only putting yourself at risk, you're putting all those families at risk as well. So if you plan ahead and create a plan, everyone is more secure in the future. Make the plan detailed, very detailed, not a one-pager. A succession plan is not one page long. So that you cover all the options, all the things we've talked about and more. There's lots of details that can go in behind what I've talked about. And the future changes. So options that happen and are selected may change over time. So what you start out with your succession plan, it's going to evolve. It's in a way, it's like a business plan, except it's specifically focused on the future of the business. And from a the company carrying on to managing what happens if something unexpected happens or someone exits the company. So it's sort of like a business plan, but not quite. And you want to keep everyone in the loop. So I recommend that when you get a succession plan, it's reviewed on a regular basis, and you communicate it every year, at least once a year. And you talk to all the employees, your business partners, all the families, lawyers, accountants, bankers, insurance companies, anyone that's key to the process, just to do a review, because as things change, they may bring up things that you need to add into the process or you need to think about that hasn't been thought about. And it's important to keep people it fresh in their mind, what's going to happen should something change in the company. Make sure there's a copy of the plan at a bank, and you have a copy that is accessible for lawyers and accountants to deal with for the government, so that they can deal with signing authorities on behalf of the company, should that be necessary. There have been situations that I've been involved with where we've had to have a lawyer intervene to deal with things at the bank and the government to keep the company moving because the only signatory passed away. So you want to make sure you have that covered. And the government will actually allow you to have signing authorities outside of the business owners. So representatives for the company, make sure those people actually exist. And if your accountant or your lawyer or that representative changes, you need to make sure that the government and the bank are updated on those changes. Make sure you have insurance on the owners. I can't stress that enough, because if an owner passes away, that insurance inside the company helps the company deal with the unexpected loss of that individual. It could be used to help the families deal with the loss. It could be to help the company move forward, depending on the type of insurance policy you have. So make sure you have insurance on the business owners and actually any key players in the company. And this sounds funny, but review and practice the execution of the plan on an annual basis. So do a mock execution of the plan. And I've had people laugh when I say that, but we've done that in lots of companies. And when they've actually had to implement the plan, they couldn't believe what a difference that made to actually making sure the plan ran smoothly. It also showed us where we had gaps or things we had to actually make better in the plan. So don't be afraid to practice the plan. So to wrap up, I'm actually on time. Ursula's going to be proud of me. Start now, be prepared, and enjoy leaving that legacy for other people. Because I really hate it when I see a company just shut down if it's successful, because everything went into a disaster. Any questions? Thank you.
So I'm going to share my screen right now. You should see that right away here. Okay, so basically, our project has been running since last July, is when it really got off the ground, and it's going to be running until the end of March this coming year, so March 2022. And we collaborated with 7 other Community Futures offices to bring this to our region. And now I just need to figure out how I'm going to get to the next slide. There we go. I think maybe there we go. So basically, because of it started right after COVID hit, we had planned to do it in person. It is now online, and as long as you have an internet connection, you can take part in it. And what we offer is a variety of free workshops provided by industry experts. So this is not Community Future staff, because that's not our specialty. And so we've found some vendors. Alberta Business Family Institute, the one that Cheryl was talking about, are one of our vendors. So they specialize on transitions to family. So Carol, if your daughter wanted to take over, they would be the people, or those would be the workshops to attend, because they will talk about what you need to do, how you can make the transition as seamless as possible, what things you need to put in place, and so on. We have, I'm going to go to that right away. We have 3 vendors. One of them has an online buy-sell site, and we have actually coupons for that site that we purchased at a fraction of the price. I'm literally saying 1% of what you would normally pay. And we also provide one-on-one coaching, and Cheryl's actually one of our coaches. So if you are interested in working with somebody one-on-one, you've just met Cheryl, and the other vendors also will coach directly. And it is funded. You don't have to pay for it. It is funded through the project. So our experts are, as I mentioned, the Alberta Business Family Institute. Commercial Ventures is it's a boutique consulting firm that specializes on third-party sales. So if you want to sell it to an employee, if you want to sell it to somebody that you don't know, that would be. And in all of them, Alberta Business Family Institute as well as Commercial Venture offer their own series of workshops that you can attend free of charge. You just need to sign up for them. And successionmatching.com is that online buy-sell site that I was talking about that we have purchased the coupons for. So regular access for a couple of years costs you at least $2,500. It will cost you $25 to get a coupon to get that access.
That's crazy.
That's a heck of a deal.
Yeah, so please, people, because we want to get.
So are all of these on your website?
Yes, they are on our website. I will show you in a moment. I can share my slideshow with April, and she can actually send it out to you, and then you have all the
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
all the links as well, because I have them at the end. And then, like I said, we have succession or exit coaches. Cheryl is one of them. Then we have coaches from Alberta Business Family Institute, and we have coaches from Commercial Ventures as well at this point of time. And then some of the other Community Futures offices might find some coaches that are more close to their region as well. But I'm talking for us right now here. So here are all the links. Our Facebook page, if you follow us on Facebook, we put everything on Facebook, all our events. It's a great way to see what we have going on. We have an extra web page that we created for this project, which is that successionplanning.net. We have a LinkedIn page for the project, and we also mention all the events on our website under our events heading. So great way to be on the up and up what's coming up. And then, of course, here's our web page once more, but I'm going to leave that up here right now. So it's free of charge. The coaching is free of charge. Please take advantage of it, because it will end in another 5 months, 6 months.
Would you say March of 2022?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So we have several series of workshops still going on. So, and they are mostly standalone. All the Alberta Business Family Institute workshops are standalone workshops, so you can take them whenever. Commercial Ventures, that's more for progression. So you should attend all 3 or 4 of them, because they will walk you through the plan, and they will talk some more about an exit plan or succession plan as well. And you can take both. Like you're not restricted to one or the other. You can take as many as you want.
There is a huge number of baby boomer owners who are heading into retirement. So the bottom end of the baby boomers are now my age, so they're in their late 50s, and they're heading into retirement. They own a lot of businesses. There's a huge opportunity for the younger generation to carry on these businesses. And I'm a big advocate of succession planning, because why would you start from scratch if you can take over a successful business and move it forward? I just think people are absolutely nuts if they're going in, if someone has a business that they already, that they want to be in, whatever that industry is or business is, and it's already successful. Why would you start from scratch if you can take that model and move it forward? So there's a huge opportunity for the next generations after the baby boomers to take these companies and run with them.
which is very much why we started this project. So the background to this project was that, especially in the rural small towns, there are so many businesses that are just shutting down because people did not look into what the options are, what succession planning even is. And they were at the point where they just wanted to get out, and then they just walk away and close down the businesses, which really affects not just the business, not just the employees, but actually the community as well. Because if you have a smaller community and a business is even a slightly essential service, you suddenly don't have that in your community anymore. Now your standard of living for the whole community is affected, right? And so that is one of the reasons why we put this project together in the first place.
Oh, that led right into that nicely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you broach the subject of a succession plan, it's like trying to get someone to write a will, because the business is their baby, and they don't want to think about the fact that they may actually leave the company at some point.
Right.
Just like people don't want to, complete a personal will because they don't want to think about the fact that they might not be around forever. But once we start the process, it really is amazing how it takes a life of its own, because they actually end up excited about it, because they get to help the company plan where it's going. They figure out that the company will carry on after them, so they'll have a legacy, and they get to figure out how it fits into their retirement or their next journey or whatever it is. Because some of my entrepreneurial business partner friends, clients, I don't think they'll ever retire. I think they'll be doing something forever. But once they get into it and they realize it's a good thing, they really start to get involved in it and get excited about it. But getting them going, because it's almost like admitting that there's a final end to this journey in this business, and it makes some of them very scared.
And then there's the other side, that if you want to sell your business, like outright sell, you have to get it ready for sale. And unfortunately, a lot of smaller businesses are nowhere near ready for sale. So things like that include having decent financial statements. So you need to have at least 2 to 3 years of financial statements. Any buyer worth their salt is going to request that. Yeah. And if you don't have that, you're going to need 3 years. Right?
And clean financial statements.
Yeah.
Because if the owners, like Carol was saying, if the owners do their own, there's lots of creative accounting that happens.
Yeah.
I've looked at a lot. I'm not an accountant, but I look at a lot of financial statements, and I'll look at some and go, what is that thing? What is that number that you have on there? And they go, oh, well, that's this, this, and this. And you're going, okay, that's not really where that should be. So there's, as Ursula said, there's cleanup that happens. And if you're going to sell it, there's preparation, and you want to put the best foot forward. So if you sell a business and you actually have a succession plan built in, and the business is set up for transition, I actually think it's worth more when it's sold. Yeah. Even if you decide that selling is the way to go. But selling could also be to your employees. If you show that you have cross-trained staff and staff that's ready to take over, and you've thought about all of the different pieces to carry a business forward, I think the company is more valuable, because if the current owners disappear and the company is set up to run successfully without them, it's more valuable for the next owner.
Thank you, Cheryl, for your time, and Ursula for your time in setting it up, and for you ladies that attended.
Thank you very much, Cheryl.
Happy to participate.